I would like to request everyone to either put their phones on silent mode or on the flight mode. So we'll just take a couple of more minutes and we'll begin. Lights. For a moment, I could see everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our chief guest, Padma Shri Dr. Rajendra Badwe, Dr. Vijay Gupchup, Dr. Rohini Kelkar, Principal, Vidyalanka School of Information Technology, Madam Rashmi Deshpande, who will be with us in a couple of minutes, our chairperson for Vidyalanka Jnanpith Trust, Shri Vishwas Deshpande, Managing Trustee of VDT, Shri Avinash Chaturika Sir, Secretary of VDT, Madam Namrata Deshpande, our trustee, Dr. Patekar, Principal, Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, Principal Ashish Ukirve of Vidyalankar Polytechnic, esteemed dignitaries of the dais, friends, well-wishers, and members of Team Vidyalankar, including the staff and students. I, Asif Rampurawala, Vice Principal of Vidyalankar School of Information Technology, welcome you all for the 5th Professor C.S. Deshpande Memorial Lecture on Cancer and Education. It's a wonderful feeling after the 3 years of lockdown to have the session once again over here, and it's been an honor to be hosting it once again. Before we proceed further, let us begin by invoking the blessings of Goddess Saraswati. May I request everyone to please stand up for the Saraswati Vandana.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेष जाड्यापहा.
Thank you, everyone. We have prepared a short video, a documentary on the life and legacy of Professor C.S. Deshpande, which will shed light on the genesis and philosophy of Vidyalankar and the man behind it. May I request to have the video, please?
Vidyalankar is not just a name. It is a tradition of excellence. Here, reliability and dedication towards students go hand in hand. Dedication and commitment to shape future generations is the driving force behind Vidyalankar. The journey of Vidyalankar started with its founder, Chandrasekhar Sadashiv Deshpande. Born in a small town, Fulton of Satara district on 19th May 1932, C.S. Deshpande completed his education under extremely difficult financial conditions. C.S. Deshpande went on to complete his inter-science examination in 1950 from Willingdon College, Sangli. He not only stood first in inter-science, but also won all the university prizes and scholarships in all the subjects. After completing his BE in Electronics and Telecommunications from the College of Engineering, Pune, he joined the prestigious TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, in 1953 as a research scholar in Nuclear Particle Accelerator section. The research scholar applied himself to the job, but he had always also believed that in order to bring out one's best, one needed to be happy in one's job. And Chandrasekhar was not happy at the TIFR. He realized that his intrinsic interest was in the field of teaching and writing mathematics. He made yet another attempt in the hope of happiness. He appeared for the All India Engineering Services examination. Not surprisingly, he secured the first rank in this All India competitive examination. He was posted in the Indian Railway Service of Engineers as a Class 1 gazetted officer and worked in the railway electrification project at Calcutta for a few years. But alas, his restlessness and misery persisted, and he continued to miss his mathematics. He decided to follow his heart. He did take the unconventional decision of resigning from the IRSE to return to Mumbai to start his own academic institute. On the auspicious day of Dasara in October 1960, he made a modest beginning by launching his own AMIE classes. His philosophy was reflected in choosing the name for his institute, Vidyalankar. Vidyalankar was meant to be a place of learning, when knowledge was considered the sole ornament to adorn or beautify a person. Vidyalankar started functioning in the rented classroom of Shardashram School of Dadar. Finally, in 1974, it arrived at Pearl Center, its present premises in Dadar. Thus, the basic objective of establishing Vidyalankar was neither commercial nor merely to earn a livelihood. The driving force was to satisfy the inner urge of dedicating oneself to academic pursuit. Passion was to guide the eager young students with a missionary zeal. Goal was to enhance their worthiness and imbibe the nobler values of life in their receptive minds. Not by merely empty words, but by setting one's own example. While chasing his dream, C.S. Deshpande was not alone. His wife, Sanjeevani, was there with him all along. She was closely associated with Vidyalankar right from its inception. Vidyalankar was life for Chandrasekhar Deshpande. He was doing what he truly enjoyed. He would himself teach multiple subjects and work 7 days a week without any holidays. He firmly believed in work is worship. In 1992, his son Vishwas joined Vidyalankar. Chandrasekhar and Vishwas worked as a team and strategized the growth plan of Vidyalankar. It was the beautiful partnership between them which put the institute on a dream run which is going full throttle every day. Every year saw substantial growth. With respect to setting up new centers, appointing qualified personnel, setting up systems, Vidyalankar's journey continued with full steam. From a single classroom setup in 1960, Vidyalankar today runs multiple centers spread across Mumbai and is now expanding to the whole of Maharashtra. With a dream to set up one's engineering degree college, Vidyalankar applied to government in 1998. This dream became a reality in 1999. In 2002, 2 more colleges were set up, namely Vidyalankar Polytechnic and Vidyalankar School of Information Technology. In 2003, Vidyalankar started constructing a college building. Vidyalankar wanted to build something remarkable. The college building had to express the will of the institution to progress in a progressive environment and to build a campus that best embodies its cherished values. The growth of Vidyalankar is now being carried forward by the next generation. Vishwas Deshpande and his wife Namrata, sister Rashmi, and Avinash all are highly qualified and educated in top schools in India and US. Once a small seed, Vidyalankar has now become a sprawling tree, embracing several generations and putting them on the right path. Students of Vidyalankar have made their mark across the globe. Over the years, Vidyalankar has grown not only in numbers, but also in quality of education. What have remained unchanged are its core values. Passion to mold young generation for a better India has become even stronger as the years pass by.
I would like to take this opportunity to request Shri Avinash Chaturika sir, our Secretary of Vidyalanka Jnanpith Trust, to welcome Padma Shri Dr. Rajendra Barve, our chief guest for the evening. Thank you, sir. I would also request Dr. Rohini Kelkar, ma'am, to please welcome Dr. Vijay Gupchup. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. It's always a pleasure to introduce our pillar of support and guiding light, Dr. Vijay Gupchup. He's a civil and structural engineer who, after graduating from University of Mumbai, did both his master's and his doctorate from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He has been an active in the field of technical education for more than 35 years and has contributed to various aspects of development of technical education at the national level. He has been the principal of VJTI and the Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Mumbai. He's a governing board member of our Vidyalankar Institutes and has always guided us in our endeavor for academic excellence. I would request him to please come up and address the gathering today.
Padma Shri Dr. Rajendra Barve, Dr. Rohini Kelkar, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. May I join Avinash in welcoming Dr. Rajendra Barve and all of you for this fourth lecture. Oh, I'm sorry, it is the fifth lecture of Professor C.S. Deshpande Memorial Lecture Series. We have just seen a documentary showing in brief Professor Deshpande's achievements as a student and later as a founder of Vidyalankar. A brilliant student in his college days, never letting the first rank slip out of his grip in the university examinations as well as the national competitive examinations, one can call him a veritable genius. A scholar of his capability would normally be engaged in research activities. Well, he did, as we have seen, did a stint at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, or in high-level engineering design, which he tried with the Indian Railways. Yet he gave up those avenues and got himself immersed in the field of teaching engineering students, with particular emphasis on his first love, the subject of mathematics. Thus was born the Institute of Vidyalankar, initially, as we have seen, a modest effort in 1960, only to grow and expand into a huge complex consisting of excellent coaching classes for a variety of competitive examinations, an engineering college, a polytechnic, and School of Information Technology. In the city of Mumbai and in many parts of Maharashtra, the name Vidyalankar is synonymous with quality education, where all undergraduate programs at Vidyalankar Institute are accredited by National Board of Accreditation and are permanently affiliated to the University of Mumbai. All the programs of Vidyalankar Polytechnic are accredited by the National Board of Accreditation. This is indeed a testimony of Professor Deshpande's commitment to his task of educating young minds. One can never overemphasize the need to keep in mind the founder's vision. Hence, the Vidyalankar Jnanapeeth Trust and the Deshpande family wish to carry out some activity to perpetuate his memory. There can be no better activity than organizing a memorial lecture series, a public lecture delivered on or near Professor Deshpande's birthday, which is 19th of May every year. The plan is to invite eminent speakers from within the country or outside to deliver this lecture on varied topics. These would include education, science and technology, finance, socio-economic issues, national development, and so on. It is hoped that these lectures would provide an opportunity to friends, colleagues, and well-wishers of late Professor Deshpande and Vidyalankar to remember the founder with affection and reverence. They will also inspire the younger generation to believe in pursuit of excellence and higher achievements. The inaugural lecture of this series was delivered by Dr. Narendra Jadhav, former member of Planning Commission and then a member of Rajya Sabha. Dr. Jadhav spoke on the subject of making Indian higher and technical education globally relevant. To deliver the second lecture, we had among us a renowned scholar, an engineer, and an economist, Padma Bhushan Dr. Kirit Parikh. He spoke on the subject of low carbon strategy for inclusive growth. The third lecture was delivered by Padma Bhushan Dr. Shashikant Chitre. He spoke on the subject of origin of life in the universe. The fourth lecture was delivered by Padma Vibhushan Dr. Anil Kakodkar, Chairman of Atomic Energy Commission of India. He spoke on the subject of taking India forward, the role of educational institutes. Today, the fifth lecture of the series will be delivered by Padma Shri Dr. Rajendra Badwe. Dr. Badwe is internationally renowned and has won several awards in recognition of his stellar contributions to cancer care. He was conferred the Padma Shri by the President of India and the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Award for Excellence in Public Administration, Academics, and Management, both in 2013. His international recognition includes prestigious awards from the National Cancer Institute in the United States of America and the Union for International Cancer Control, UICC, amongst others. Under his stewardship, the TMC had the honor of plenary session presentations at the American Society of Clinical Oncology annual meeting in 2 out of 3 years in the last decade, a feat that very few cancer centers in the world have achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Rajendra Badwe and invite him to deliver his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupchup, for such a elaborate introduction. And Dr. Gupchup, Dr. Kelkar, Professor Deshpande's family, and friends. Talking about cancer is few years ago would have been slightly out of place because there are not many who wanted to talk about it. But in today's world, there is probably every family that is touched by this disease. And if not, some neighbor is in and around has had some exposure to this disease. And then what follows as an aftermath of the wrath that the disease plays the havoc in. I must say that Professor Deshpande's contribution to education is phenomenal, and we, to some extent, at Tata Hospital follow almost the same rules that are embodied in Vidyalankar Institute, primarily to identify niche areas that are nationally important, wherein education can be imparted, and also, on one hand, to teach something which is relevant to pass exam. On the other hand, also teach methods of learning so that we can reinvent, rediscover ourselves every time a new problem we face. With that, my today's talk will be based on cancer and education, which has essentially two components. Cancer has to be linked with public education. That will be the first part of my talk, wherein we need to be aware about this disease and what could be the awareness. And the second, what needs to be done for managing this scourge with education. So the first part is of greater importance, according to me. And let me take you through what is exactly happening. And it is customary that I define the conflicts of interest before I talk, which is usual. And I have two conflicts of interest that need to be expressed. One is that I'm extremely fond of math. So there will be lots of numbers that will come in my talk. And the second is that I am extremely proud of what happens in India. So my biases would be talking a lot of good things that happen within India. So with that, let me take you through what is required at the public education so that we don't fear what cancer is. And let me give you the first example of why we should not fear cancer. And that is, there are three major diseases that affect with aging, that affect us with aging. And these are cancer, blood pressure, and diabetes. If I were to look at anybody diagnosed with either of these three diseases, say at age 50, on an average, if I were to look at age 70, less than 50% of those with either blood pressure or diabetes would still be thriving. The rest wouldn't be there. Whereas with cancer, a fair number, if I were to take all cancers put together, it will be almost similar number, 50%. If I were to take common cancers in India, this number would be 70% would cross that 70 years of mark. And yet we fear cancer. And we don't fear. If you're told that somebody's got diabetes, so I've got diabetes, and I will probably take care of it. Mind you, for both those diseases, whether diabetes or blood pressure, the tablets or medication is for lifetime. For cancer, the medication at worst will be for upper limit of about a year or so. By then, everything is over. We don't need any medications beyond that. But yet, we fear cancer more. And that has a human psychology involved. The reason is lives lost because of diabetes and blood pressure start somewhere between year 8 after diagnosis to year 20 after diagnosis. Whereas lives lost because of cancer are from year 1 after diagnosis and year 3 or 4 after diagnosis. So the lives lost, somebody's got cancer and we've lost him. This happens within a very short time of diagnosis. Whereas since it doesn't happen, the acceptance that somebody is living with the disease, what's the problem? So the fear is because of the quickness with which the fatal component works in. So let's look at numbers. There is no reason why we should be having it. As I mentioned, the common cancers in India are cervical cancer, breast cancer, and oral cancer. For these, the cure rates are more than 70%. 70% will live and cross the age of 70 and 80. So shouldn't be worried about. But let's look at some numbers. Here are some numbers. And if you look at what happens in rural India, on an average, out of every 1 lakh population, about 40 to 50 will get cancer if I were to stay in Barshi. The same numbers if I were to stay in Pune would be about 65 to 75. If I were to come to Mumbai, Bangalore, Kolkata, Delhi, the same number would be about 100 per 100,000. And if I were to move to US, the same number would be about 300 to 350. Yet, in our mind, the West is best. You might stand up and say that we might be missing patients in rural India. People might be just undiagnosed. To some extent, it might happen, but we do have approximately 2 million population that wherein in various parts of rural pockets, wherein we have house-to-house survey annually, and there is no cancer. This 40 to 50 number that I'm saying is of the places where we have house-to-house survey and there isn't any cancer. The same thing is so true that, for example, breast cancer in Barshi, where we have our registration and a registry, cancer registry, functioning since 1982, the incidence of breast cancer is 9 per 100,000 in women. 9. This number in United States is 120 per 100,000. About 9 years ago, Bill Melinda Gates Foundation pumped in about $2 million in Barshi to understand what is there which has kept the numbers at 9 per 100,000 and has continued to be 9 for the last 30 years. They just wanted to look at, can they export something from Barshi to United States? This transition obviously is a hallmark of urbanization. As we move from rural to semi-urban to urban to metropolitan India or metropolitan world, the numbers change like this. And there is a 5 to 10% transition in the habitat with every census. Even every census you will find the degree of urbanization increases by about 5 to 10% in some pocket. There is also a transition of population from one area to the other, and all that increases the number. And you will understand that BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa is also part of this. These are the countries where the component of urbanization is rising. We are progressing from developing towards developed countries. And India is the only country where for the last 25 years, the numbers that are here have remained a straight line. In a sense that number that was 100 in urban population has continued to be 100 for the last 20 years. Exactly similarly, semi-urban numbers have remained the same and rural numbers have also remained the same. But the absolute number of cancer has increased because of more and more urbanization. So let's look at why these differences. And you will find in the first row what happens in United States, in the next what happens in India, and why there is such a big difference. And a great majority of the differences are explained by prostate, lung, colon, and breast cancer. At least these four cancers account for the huge difference between India and United States. And within brackets, I have written S for some of them. These are the cancers which are screened in United States. Not all of them are screened in India. In India, only breast and cervical cancer is screened. No other cancer is screened in India. So screening itself increases some numbers, which I will allude to a bit later. But suffice to say that such huge differences, 60-10 in colon, in lung, 55-6 in colorectal cancer, large intestinal cancer, and a lot of it can be accounted for by, especially for the large intestinal cancer, by the diet that we have, the kind of spices that we use, the amount of red chilies that and the green chilies that we use, the degree of non-vegetarian diet. So when some Indian says that I am non-vegetarian, he would have in his plate about 5 or 6 things. One of them will be some either chicken or mutton or some fish, but there will be lots of other things. And if I were to get out of the cities, then a great majority of the non-vegetarian dishes would be served with a nice green chili on top. And the gentleman there would merrily bite into it. We look down upon it, but please understand, there is a science behind it. If there are enough spices, enough chilies in non-vegetarian diet, this diet has foreign DNA. The duration for which the foreign DNA can come in contact with the intestinal mucosa decides how much of effect it will have on the intestinal mucosa. So intestinal hurry is what is induced by spices and by chilies. And it is this that prevents lots of cancers. And you will be surprised that being constipated is hugely unsettling for an Indian. It is not so for a foreigner, for the Western region. We were working on a drug for breast cancer, which had the side effect of frequency of motion and occasional loose motions. This study was done in about 20 different countries. And in all these international studies, it is a norm that if there is an adverse reaction reported by any patient who is on trial, it should be informed to all the trialists. Typically, I would get one letter at least every week. We had about 54 patients on the trial, and we ran that trial for about 4 years. For 4 years, every week I would get at least one letter. from some other country, but the central agency informing that somebody had loose motions or be careful about it. And we always used to wonder, not a single lady with breast cancer who was on the trial ever complained that she had loose motions. Finally, when we finished the trial, we decided that we'll ask every individual as to what is happening. By then, the drug had stopped. And a lot of women were now complaining that kotha saaf hot nahi neat. So, having a good motion is a norm for us. And if it doesn't happen, it unsettles us. And that's one of the reasons why the numbers are 55 and 6. That the duration of time for which we are exposed to. Whereas if you look at the Western diet, it will be when somebody says I'm a non-vegetarian, it will be cold cuts for the breakfast. There will be a blob of flesh in the form of a steak with a miserable vegetable in the corner and without anything at all, no spices at all. And he would merrily bite into that flesh being constipated. But please understand that that is what is producing. We cannot be adopting that diet so very easily, saying that this is the best, because we are protected. We are protected by what we eat today. That's the good part of what we do. Let's move to having known the numbers and why the difference. How many people are dying of cancer in India? These numbers are pretty reliable. In cities, these are well documented, so we know that out of 100,000 population, age standardized, about 65 individuals die of cancer in India. The same number in the United States is about 106. We are still better off, and we can be better. We can be even better. Let's look at why. The numbers are about 1/4, sometimes 1/8 of what US is. These small numbers, close to 40% are related to tobacco. They are induced by tobacco. Another 15% by obesity. This is a problem quite similar to what the advice that we give to others: stop smoking, lose weight. These are excellent advices for somebody else. And majority of the times after this talk, my wife would agree that I then go for walks for the next 5 days, at least every day morning. The third kind of cancers are 15%, which are infection related. And these infection related cancers are very steeply on the wane. They are reducing at a breakneck speed in India. We don't know why is it happening. There can be some conjectures, some reasons, but majority of the infection related cancers are reducing at a breakneck speed. Cancer of the cervix, uterine cervix in women. This cancer accounted for approximately 24 women out of 100,000 every year. This 24 number today in Mumbai stands at 7. In United States, it stands at 6. We are no different. And what have we done? We haven't done anything. We have just allowed a good personal hygiene in our men over a period of time. And why has this happened? This has happened because of privacy of bathroom, running water. Such simple things to happen. In Barshi, there are 2 areas separated 15 kilometers away. There is a rural Barshi and there is a semi-urban Barshi, a textile town that has come up in the last 20 years. Between the 2 areas, Barshi rural had 28 women being affected by cervical cancer every year out of 100,000 women. Whereas Barshi urban has the same number standing at 15 within 5 years of urbanization. What has changed? They have a municipal corporation, they have running water in every household, and there are bathrooms in every household for individuals to have their own bath in the privacy of bathroom. The chap in rural Barshi has his bath at a common well. His undergarments are still on. He's having bath every day there. I wonder what kind of genital hygiene that gentleman has. Now, if this gentleman who is likely to have higher and higher concentration of HPV virus under his prepuce, growing to a large amount only because it is not washed. One intercourse with the lady in the house and would allow that whole load of HPV virus deposited, and the lady has no other choice but to get cervical cancer. 28 per 100,000 reduced to 15, reduced to 7 by the time you come to Mumbai. And you might see there are many other things that are happening. But there is one good example. Muslims, our Muslim brethren in Barshi rural, Muslim brethren in Barshi urban, Muslim brethren in Mumbai, and Muslim brethren in Middle East. All women for this community have incidence of cervical cancer, which is 5 per 100,000. Why should it be 5 in Barshi urban? Why should it be 5 in Barshi rural? The reason is that they have had circumcision. I'm not asking everybody to have circumcision. But please understand that what is the purpose of religion? To improve our lifestyle, to improve our quality of life, to lead a better, happy, healthy life. The same thing can be taught by somebody to our children. I was visiting a place in Rajasthan and for a cancer detection camp. And post camp, there was this place where we were taken to a household who had arranged for all the camp. And the gentleman there said that they have some very old document, and it was really old document on parchment and written in a language which I couldn't understand, but the gentleman read it out. The parchment described what are the jobs of every individual in a family. So man was supposed to provide for the family, protection, money, everything. The lady was supposed to look after the family as far as all aspects of household is concerned. I'm not trying to say that women should not work outside. Just the parchment said that. The third thing which was so remarkable, that the grandmother is supposed to teach grandson genital hygiene. And that was supposed to be taught between age 9 and 11. And it was such an excellent piece of advice that if I were to teach somebody, a child, cleaning the genitals, and if I were to retract the prepuce, which covers the tip of the penis, that retraction process is not possible physiologically till the age of 7 or 8. And if it is forced, it produces a disease called paraphimosis, which is a surgical emergency. So the paper very clearly said that this is not to be taught before 9 years of age. Post that it should be taught. And there you are. If it is taught to every man, every boy, I'm sure the incidence of this cancer is going to reduce the way it is reducing in all the cities of India. Suffice to say that infection-related cancers are reducing to a great extent. I'm going to give you a few steps that have been taken to reduce cancer-related tobacco and some deadly figures for tobacco. About 1 million tobacco deaths every year happened in 2010. This is the data of 2010 in India. This came in New England Journal of Medicine, one of the topmost journals from Harvard University. The cumulative risk in men, if somebody is on it, if stopped, does it reduce the death rate? And look at the death rate. Somebody who has never had any smoking at all, the lowest line with clear circles, the possibility of dying of cancer is about lung cancer is about 3%. And the top is continued smoking. 15% of those who are smoking will die every year because of lung cancer. If somebody stops at 50, that 15% reduces to 6%. That's not actually 15, that's 16%. Imagine 16% reduced by 10%. That's a huge reduction in the possibility of dying. If somebody stops at 30, but obviously has started much earlier than that, then that reduction is 2%. So from 16% reduced to 2%. So it's never too late. One can stop, and stopping smoking stops the killing related to tobacco. The governments usually follow this triple, halve, and double. Triple the tax, the use reduces by half, and the revenue doubles. This is how the French paradox happened. That's the consumption line on top in black. The prices were increased with taxation from 80s. That's the rise, and the consumption has reduced remarkably. And the end result is that the revenue rose during the same time by double the amount. So no loss to the taxpayer or the exchequer, and yet there will be more healthier people in here. We don't have so much of problem of smoking. And you know why? Because the ambient temperature outside is very high. The smoke that an individual inhales, when I say inhale, I'm actually taking the smoke in my lungs. It must be extremely, I've never attempted it, but I'm sure that it must be extremely discomforting to have that I'm sweating and I have this huge amount of heat that goes right inside the core of my body, completely unsettling. So our smokers are mouth smokers. They don't inhale. If you see an Englishman smoking, what comes out is of a very different color compared to what has gone in. Whereas for Indians, what comes out and goes is little difference, not great amount of difference, because all that is in mouth, upper limit, larynx and pharynx. That's where our cancers are. And I showed you the numbers. Our cancers compared to the West are much higher in oral cavity. So if we were to stop reducing or reduce tobacco use, there will be reduction in cancer, reduction in blood pressure, reduction in heart attack and strokes, reduction in general of the reason why we should visit hospitals. All-cause mortality reduced remarkably. And it is so very good that the vegetable vendor, the fishmonger, and many others, the daily living people, come to our household. They come to our doorsteps to sell their bit, all healthy things. But we walk all the way to some shop to buy a cigarette. I wonder, what is this technology up here? So infection, I spoke about running water and potable water. I spoke about personal hygiene. Good food preservation is another important component, not so much in Western India. I mean, majority of the places where electricity is available, refrigeration is available, and food preservation is there. But in general, cook the food today and finish it today is an excellent advice, age-old advice. We do tend to keep it in the refrigerator. I have a 5-star deep freezer. 3 weeks. 3 weeks inside, I'll take it out again. Or I'm going out somewhere now for a month and my husband will starve. I'll probably cook 30 days of boxes in deep freezer. Every day he'll take out one. I have done it. he takes out one, microwave and in. Not a very healthy way of living, but occasionally it's okay. This has a much bigger impact in our northeastern India. In northeast India, smoked meat is very commonly consumed. Smoked meat is not bad, but properly smoked and properly preserved. There are places in the West where smoked meat is very commonly consumed, and you know that smoked meat will have no problems in those countries. But in India, in northeastern India, you will find that every kitchen, there is meat hanging from the roof, right on top of the chula. And that's a slow way of smoking the meat. And we don't know in what condition that meat is, but it is consumed at the end. This place has a typical cancer, which is behind the oral cavity, behind the nose, in an area called nasopharynx. Nasopharyngeal cancer is unknown in this part of India, and it affects about 15 to 20 individuals out of every 100,000 in northeastern India. So obviously there is something happening there. And what grows in ill-preserved meat is a virus called Epstein-Barr virus, which is the etiological agent or causative factor for nasopharyngeal cancer. So preventable, easily preventable. I have already alluded to diet, but diet related to obesity. Now, this is another problem which is the opposite of what is happening in our rural India. I don't think many people are starving in India. In fact, many people have a lot more food than what they need. All of us, at least I, eat because it is time to eat. Hunger is a word in dictionary today. I wonder whether our children ever know what that word means, because there is so much of food, and yet majority of the mothers are complaining, mulga khatach nahi bilkul. And if you look at that child, roly-poly. It is so amazing that I'm reminded of my childhood days when the usual problem is, milk is kept, mother is after you that please have it, and you're not having it. My grandmother used to tell my mother, leave this on the table, let him go, let him understand what hunger is. You're not allowing him to understand the need for what you are giving. But then mothers are mothers. Another component of mother, which is commonly in our own country, is that usually all of them are women are pretty thin, up to about 35 or so, up to 40. And then our work in the house usually improves to some extent. And then there is a lot more fat, a lot more doodh, toop, vagare, vagare. So, and this person, there's another principle that is common in our household, that nothing should be wasted. So the son who is eating quietly will leave small bit in mother's plate. And that little lady will quietly finish everything that comes in the plate. The end result is that slowly the sedentary lifestyle continues. The eating habits also continue, but we are not consuming that calorie. By the time the lady reaches 50, there is already fair amount of weight that is gained. At 50, because of menopause, there is a physiological increase in weight, which is unavoidable. And then by the time 55 comes in, there is fairly not a very good condition. And that produces 19 different cancers. 19 different cancers are attributable to obesity. So we need to walk. We badly need to do something which will allow good breakfast, average lunch, no dinner, and 40 minutes of walk every day. This will take care of majority of the things. Presently, the lifestyle that cities have, and my suggestion there is about walking cities and having dedicated cycling tracks. Anything, any other vehicle coming into, even electrical vehicles coming into that cycling track should have punishment. If we have that, people will safely ride bicycles and would be easily possible to lose weight without any problems. Walking cities. The distance between Warsaw and Gateway of India through the coastal road is 14 kilometers. If you were to have 3 travelators, the one that we have in airport, say a kilometer of a travelator, first one moving at 5 kilometers an hour, the next one at 10, the third one at 15 kilometers an hour. You're walking on the street, you're walking at 5 kilometers an hour, step onto the first one, start walking on it, you'll walk at 10, step onto the next one, walk onto it, you're walking at 15, step onto the next one, no problem at all, walking at 20 kilometers an hour. From Warsaw to Gateway of India, you will reach in 40 minutes. Breathing fresh air of sea and walking for 40 minutes. Imagine if the whole city was to use this kind of transportation, we would be much more healthier. I did suggest to the Chief Minister while not the one, the previous one, that if we are building coastal road, let's make it a double-decker road. The lower one can have these escalators, 3 going in one direction, 3 coming back, and you would have sorted out. I mean, today, moving from Gateway of India to Warsaw, we take about 2.5 hours sitting at one place, polluting the air around the whole area. We need some better thinking here. I will not allude to the screening. I have taken more than what I'm supposed to take. But it is good to know, and we keep on saying early detection is best for cancer. And I need to shoot that myth down. The reason is that when you start screening, you will find more, because we screen with greater and greater precision. Yeah, it's quite like a CCTV ad signal. You will pick up cars that cross that white line and park, cars that go beyond, park on the zebra crossing. But are you looking for these individuals? You're not looking for these individuals. You're looking for somebody who will break the signal, knock somebody down and go. Right? So if I were to look for cancer, I want to look for a killer cancer. And if I can conquer that cancer by early detection. So we need strong evidence. If I were to start screening, the numbers will increase. No problem. If that were to actually save lives. For lung cancer screening, for prostate cancer screening, for at least these 2 cancer screenings, colorectal is not required for us. But for these 2 cancers, even if there is early detection, there is no saving of lives. So equal number of people are dying. Why should I have somebody stamped with cancer and make them live? There is just no reason. Because the numbers, if they are increased, say for example, breast cancer in women above 50, 30% reduction in deaths if they were to screen themselves. But there is a 30% increase in incidence also. And that 30% continues till 25 years after screening has begun. So for 25 years, 30% of the cancers remain silent within the body in the other population that never had screening. So you can't underestimate this phenomenal machine, which helps us very greatly. And you can't keep on telling that the help is outside the body. The help is inside. It's quite like being criminal. That police is not outside. Police is within. The day you feel that the police is outside, there is a small chance that you will become criminal. And we don't want that to happen. The cancer cells are there everywhere. They may be there. If I were to look at prostate biopsies in all individuals above the age of 60, somewhere close to about 70% will have some positive diagnosis. Is that the number that we get? No, we get only 9 out of 100,000. 9 out of 100,000 versus some 60-70% out of 100. Those numbers are phenomenal. The body has capability to contain and to keep cancers, even if they are small and microscopic. Behave yourself. That's what the order is. So we need to have that positivity within to see that the cancers are kept at bay, or if not, they are just a small kind of thought that has come in mind. When I say thought, if that metal detector at the airport, if it were to detect either past or present corrupt thought in human mind, how many of us will be able to walk through it? I will not be able to walk through it. But again, I repeat the same. I'm not looking at somebody who has had some thought in mind, or some small thing that there is red signal. I'm running for some case in hospital. There is nobody around. I have broken the signal, gone. Not knocked down anybody. Wrong action. I am a criminal for that. But I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for somebody who can pick up an AK-47 and fire at individuals. I'm looking at that kind of individual. So picking up Bhurte Chor, not very right. I move on from public education to what education is required for cancer. And that's where I feel that any education system should have primarily teach what is known. Teach what is known, but that doesn't mean that we have conquered everything. So the second part of teaching should be to understand methods of learning which will allow you to tame what is unknown. To tame what is unknown is vitally important, because without that, we will remain the same as we were in year 1960, 2000, 2060, and we would be the same. We need to understand what makes us think differently. At least if 5% of us were able to do that, we would have won the war against cancer. So there are various known courses. There are MCH in surgery, various parts of surgical oncology, DM for medical oncology. There is MD in ancillary branches like radiotherapy, radiology. But more importantly, all these have been there for years, but we're still short of individual. And even if we were not short of individuals the way we are in cities, patients are not happy. So we ran to understand various courses from doctors as well as inputs from patients to understand what are the gaps. The doctors wanted to say that we don't have time, so we need protected time. We also need infrastructure for research. So we started a course, an MSc in clinical research. Now, this is the first time that MSc started in India for clinical research. Today, we take in about 100 individuals every year now, about 50 individuals every year. And all of them, after 2.5 years of work, have a job guaranteed the very next year before they leave our institute. And they are supporting research through industry, through individual centers. There are various places where they have positioning. Similarly, oncology nursing, cancer-related nursing, never taught earlier, but there are specific areas where nursing training is required. And there are various courses that are important from the point of view of training. Say a simplest course. I'm sure in one of the times in your house, you might have called somebody to draw blood. Now this gentleman is a phlebotomist. What is his qualification? He knows how to see the vein, how to look at the vein, feel the vein, puncture it and draw blood. If I were to have blood being drawn for my relative, I wouldn't do it myself, because that gentleman is more trained into it. He has a much greater experience. So a focused area, a reductionist model, that the whole thing is reduced to something, and that is taught because there is excellence involved in process. And in process, reducing the amount of work that you do from larger amounts to smaller amounts will improve the outcome. One of the examples, I was in Taiwan, and 20 theaters were running for plastic surgery. And having gone through 1 or 2 theaters, we walked out. And while walking out, I suddenly found that there was a small room where there were about 5 girls, maybe age 10 to 15, that kind of age. And I asked the gentleman as to, are these patients? What are these girls doing here? He says, these are girls who have extremely steady hand. They are taught how to suture vessels under microscope. So the plastic surgeon prepares the whole vessel, is kept under the microscope, and usually plastic surgeon takes about 45 minutes to suture that vessel. These girls do it in 10 minutes. And their patency rate is far superior to somebody who is age 45. So again, an example that you have identified a focused area and explore it for training. And obviously they get a good job. We ran another area with a survey in our patients as to, you have got the best evidence-based care, the top range of care, which is globally standardized, the kind of delivery that is the machines, the infrastructure is excellent. Do you have any problems? So when we ran this survey to understand gaps, the gaps were enormous. The dropout rates were enormous. And we were surprised as to we needed a workforce that, while talking to patient, would be looked upon as the team of doctors, as part of that team. And while taking up problems of patients with the doctors, is looked upon as a family member of that patient. So an individual was thought of, and we call them Kevat. Kevat is a chap who took Prabhu Ram from one end of Sharayu River to the other bank. And the story goes like this, that at the end of reaching the other end, he offered his ring to him, that since you did such a good job. And he said that individuals with the same profession don't charge each other. So he asked, how is this? That how come my profession is same as yours? So he said, I have taken you from one end of the river at the other end without the intervening tempest affecting you. You do the same for everybody for their life. So we termed this Kevat, that this is a turbulent time for the patient. And can we do something which will allow them to pass through this as if there's a small blip in life and the life comes back to normal? Just to give these examples, there are a huge number of other certificate courses that we run. But suffice to say that on an average at any given time, about 1,000 students of various categories are with us, and they remain with us for somewhere close to about anywhere from 6 months to about 4 years, so that they are prepared to take on life. And I must confess, unlike any other course, what you will learn in medicine, 100% of what you have learned is applicable in day-to-day life. If that 100% is not 100%, you will have difficulty treating your patients. In many other courses, when I talk to my engineering friends, many other friends, and say, find that what we have learned is not applicable today. It has changed remarkably. So that's the difference between what medicine is, and we need to identify, can we focus something, and at the same time, not to lose the bigger picture. If we get down and down vertically, it shouldn't so happen that our horizontal understanding at the surface is lost. That in pursuit of individual disease, if we were to break it down into smaller and smaller areas, we should not miss out that there is a forest in front of us, and that has its own problems which need to be sorted out. That's our graduation ceremony at Tata Hospital of students who pass out. And I will stop at that, only to again take you back to the public education. And there was something that I oft repeat with many of my talks, that my grandmother used to make me recite at bedtime, and which I thought was an excellent public health exercise. She used to make me recite this every time before going to bed, that at 10 years, stop holding finger of your mother. So you need to be independent. At 20, stop playing with toys. At 30, by 30, stop looking around. At 40, stop dinner. We need to reduce the intake that we have. At 50, I have a certain loss of what is 50 in spite of reciting it for, you remember that? No. Okay. So at 40, no dinner. At, maybe later if I'll come back to it. At 60, nothing new to be done. Continue with whatever you're doing. At 70, stop having sour food, because the arthritic changes are more affected. Not that arthritis reduces, but the manifestation reduces. At 80, start sleeping on harder bed. At 90, stop having zest for life. And at 100, stop your life. Thank you very much. If there are any questions allowed, I don't mind answering any of them. I have taken much longer than what is, and I usually follow one principle that one yawn in the crowd and I would stop talking. Yes, there was some question there.
Is cancer genetically transferable in the family?
Very good question. Not more than 2% of cancers are inherited. Not more than 2%. So I'll give you an example of that. If there is the possibility of somebody getting breast cancer is about, if I were to see 100 women at age 30 and observe them for their lifetime, 3 out of those 100 will get breast cancer in city of Mumbai in their lifetime, not in 1 year. If these 100 were daughters of women or mothers who had breast cancer after the age of 50, that number 3 will become 4, which is how much? About 30% increase, isn't it? Am I right? Mathematically, okay. So 30% increase. And if I were to tell these daughters that there is a 30% increase, what is the interpretation? Or the mother patient who comes in, the usual question is what you asked, will my daughter get this cancer? And the answer is, if I were to tell that there is a 30% greater chance, the mother will think that I have already got it and my daughter has 30% greater chance. But that interpreted is 94 or 96 of such daughters will never get cancer. We then move on to inherited cancers. There is a breast cancer that can be inherited, wherein 3 or more family members, first degree family blood relations, if they have breast or ovarian cancer, then there is a possibility, which is about 20% possibility that they may be inheriting that gene. So that possibility is very, very small. Inherited cancers, again, I'll repeat, are not more than 2% of cancers. And great majority manifest within the first 30 years of life. So if you have crossed your age of 30, you're safe. Yes.
Some light on autophagy.
Autophagy is a protective mechanism. With increasing age, there is cancer. Why does that happen? Do we know why somebody at 25 doesn't get cancer, but somebody at 75, the risk is about 50 times more compared to at age 25. What is changing? What is changing is that there is fairly large amount of cell death that happens normally. Great amount of our cells have an average lifespan which is 120 days. So every 120 days, the whole of body cells are changed, except in some regions like brain or some areas. So the dead material, the dead cell material needs to be clipped into smaller and smaller particles. If it is not clipped, there is a problem, and the clipping process is helped by an enzyme called DNase, an enzyme that allows autophagy of the DNA material. So the moment the chromatin has the skeleton and has those amino acids. If that chromatin is clipped, the possibility reduces remarkably. But DNase reduces over a period of time, and there may be free chromatin. And if free chromatin is there, I will have to give some complex explanation. Please try and understand this. If there is free chromatin outside a cell, that means I have this house and I suddenly find every cell which has its own mind, which is similar to the host mind, if this chromatin within my cell sees outside, oops, there is chromatin there. What have I lost? So the cell takes that chromatin in. And that chromatin, the cell then tries to fit into, looking at the chromatin as to where will it fit in. Now, in an intact skin, how will you put in another skin? You can't. So it then starts a repair mechanism within that cell. There is no injury, but yet it starts a repair mechanism because there is chromatin there. And that repair mechanism will break DNA somewhere, will push this inside, and then the whole chromosomal structure changes. And that will happen only if the skeleton of that chromatin is intact. If the skeleton is not there, amino acids are not identified as part of us or part of somebody else's. So that unique identity is, if it is there, then there is a problem. And that's how and this autophagy also affects our smaller, the energy house called mitochondria. Mitochondria also has its own DNA. Now that DNA, if it is not digested within, has to be replaced. Then we get Parkinsonism. We get so many other kinds of diseases which are related to aging. Starvation is one of the ways of improving autophagy. So once a week fasting, every day, no dinner is all part of fasting. In my opinion, that's the best way of keeping you healthy. Yes. Yes. So the question is pesticide use. So two parts of question. One is that some village which has more cancer, I have heard this many times. We have visited many such villages and there is no excess cancer there. The second component is pesticides are estrogenic molecules, and excess estrogen is a carcinogen. Body fat, when I said obesity, body fat is a rich source of estrogen after menopause in women. And greater the estrogen, greater is the possibility of various cancers, whether it is body uterus, whether it is breast, ovarian cancer, kidney cancer, the junction of stomach and food pipe. There are many cancers that are attributable to obesity or excess estrogenic stimulus. So you're right. I mean, pesticides are to be used to bare minimum. Yes.
There is a possibility that there is a vaccine for cervical cancer. So how should we take that vaccine, or it's kind of a myth that could prevent cervical cancers?
So I gave you some numbers that cervical cancer has reduced from 24 in Mumbai to 7. And if I were to treat cervical cancer by early detection, the cure rates are 97%. I would consider taking a vaccine for a fatal disease. If the incidence is low and the possibility of curing that disease, if detected in those small numbers, is huge, why should I give it to the rest of the 93% of the population unless I have some shares in that industry? Time?
Sir,
Okay.
I have one question for you. That nowadays there is lots of buzz about data science into health analytics. So being a data science college and technology college, how can we work along with you in that area?
Data science is something vitally important and right. Something that was not possible. I'll get back to my what was forgotten at 50, and my wife has reminded me about it. At 50, बाहेरचं खाणं बंद करायचं, which is an impossibility. Today, I wonder how many kitchens are active in our houses. There are lots of hotels that are active. So between data science, yes, if I were to say that, so let me give you an example quick as to how you can be taken for a ride if data is not appropriately looked at. Somebody who stands up and says that, there are about 5 cancer patients who were told at Tata Hospital that you have very short life, no treatment is possible. I have with me living for the last whatever 3-4 years. What is important is for these 5 who are alive, how many have died is not known. What was the total number that was treated is not known. And if when Tata Hospital says that there is hardly any possibility that somebody will live, that possibility is 5% that they may live beyond, say, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Now, if this gentleman is out of those 5%, you've completely forgotten that 95% have died. So data science is important from the point of view of unbiased assessment of efficacy. The second important component, the investigative modalities that we use today are giving us data in hordes, in terabytes. I decide that I want to do a expression profile of tumor. For every patient, the file that I get from the next generation sequencing machine is about 1.5 terabyte. Now, human mind is incapable of interpreting 1.5 terabytes. Again, an important that data science individuals should put in their head here to understand. The second important thing is, this is happening at microscopic level, I said. At clinical level, on an average, an efficacy parameter is understood if I have a trial with about 1,500 to 3,000 patients, appropriately randomized. Each patient will have at least about 25 variables. So 3,000 into 25 is the kind of x-axis, y-axis I'm looking at. I need a good data science individual to tell me what I feel is right is actually expressed by the data, by real life data. From here, I go to take a gestalt view at the population level. And what are the numbers there? Out of 100,000, 10 will get it. But I may have data on 100,000. Now, how do I interpret this data of 100,000 for these 10 individuals? Again, I need assistance. So this is a flaw in our education, that somebody who wants to pursue medicine has to leave math. At least when I was during my inter-science days, it was a norm that by first year science, after first year science, we had to decide that am I going to A group or B group? And the B group chap would have no mathematics. So being a mathematical was wrong. So what is important is that we need a bit of everybody in whatever we are doing. We need to work together. Very important.
Good evening, sir. Most thank you for your beautiful lecture. I'm having 2 questions. One about some radiations, that is the medical radiation, medical persons are exposed. Another one, the common person is having a doubt about the electromagnetic radiations. We are always keeping our cell phone under our pillows. Second question is about the food. Food served in containers, whatever are available in the markets, plus the fast food they are containing the preservative. How much and how long they are harmful to us? I think there are 4 questions. I'm sorry.
So if I forget any of them, I'll ask you again. The preservatives are again estrogenic, so should be avoided. The second, the container in which you are eating your food or bringing your food, if that is for a short time, there is no problem. But to keep that after having finished half of it for the rest of the 3 weeks or 2 weeks in the refrigerator is not appropriate. Coming to the electromagnetic waves. The microwaves, as of today, related to mobiles, do not produce any oncologic changes. It does not produce. As far as radiation is concerned, there is a kind of feeling which is still debated, that is there a linear relationship between the degree of radiation and incidence of cancer, or incidence of end arteritis, that smaller blood vessels slowly change and they close, producing heart attacks if there is radiation there. So if that is happening or not, is something that needs to be looked at, because there is a second school of thought that feels that up to certain degrees that there is it's not linear, there is a threshold, and beyond threshold it starts a linear relationship. There is strong debate about it. In fact, if I remember rightly, the linear relationship chap was given Nobel Prize some years ago, although there is huge amount of debate. But in general, if the whole society is running away from radiation, it sounds good that the Nobel Prize should be given for a linear relationship, because the lowest one is also needs to be dumped. But with the crisis that is happening in Europe, suddenly everybody is saying that radiation is pretty safe, because they need to produce electricity for survival in various areas. But let's look at what is the kind of flip side of whatever we do. If I were to give radiation to breast, for breast, my examples would be breast cancer, because I'm a breast cancer specialist. Radiation given to breast, wherein in good old days, there would be some scatter radiation that might go inside. This is therapeutic radiation, much higher than any other radiation that we speak of. Diagnostic radiation is much smaller. And that therapeutic radiation would produce, say, a new cancer, maybe a sarcoma or a lung cancer in the field of exit beam. That means it has given radiation to the area maximum where it is required, but the beam has to go through. And while it goes through, it can start, the beam can be programmed that it will start decimating energy or dissipating energy at this time, not earlier than that. But once that programming begins, then it will keep on doing. It will have a bragg peak, wherein a large amount of radiation is given within the area where we want the radiation to be given, but some bit of radiation will go beyond also. Now that produces cancer, which is approximately 1 out of 1,000 individuals who get cancer, one excess cancer compared to general population. So if general population out of 1,000, 3 were to get, here it will be 4. So one additional cancer produced by that radiation. But the same radiation is saving 1 in 4 lives with breast cancer. Now, where is it comparison? 1 in 4 lives saved versus 1 in 1,000 might be lost somewhere 20 years down the line. No comparison. So there is safety as far as that radiation is concerned. There isn't much of a problem with that. In fact, there is an entity called hormesis, wherein the body gets accustomed and makes good use of it. The workers in uranium mines in Canada, there was a very large study done for about 25 years, and they found that their longevity was more than general population. That doesn't mean that we should radiate ourselves. It's quite like tobacco. You know, one who is smoking, if you say, he'll say, there are so many of them who are smoking, they have not died. Or the best example given is George Bernard Shaw, never smoked. He lived till age of 80 or 82 or so. And Winston Churchill smoked every day. He had insomnia. So even at night he would smoke. And he also died at age of 84. Such examples don't prove anything. You know, if there are 100 people who jump from third floor, one of them might live, but that doesn't mean it is safe to jump from there. All yours.
I'm sure I'm not the most loved person right now to have taken you away from Dr. Rajendra. So thank you, sir. I am sure all of us feel a lot better about being Indians and the kind of food which we eat. I'm still, trying to ascertain whether it's a good thing that I'm a foodie or not. But I would now like to request Shri Vishwas Deshpande, our Managing Trustee of Vidyalanka Jnanpith Trust, to felicitate Dr. Rajendra Badwe. And I think I speak for everybody, very well deserved. I would now request our principal, Dr. Rohini Kelkar, ma'am, to propose the vote of thanks.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Rajendra Badwe, respected Dr. Gupchup sir, our most valued invitees, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Vidyalankar Group of Educational Institutes, it's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on the occasion of 5th Professor C.S. Deshpande Memorial Lecture. The word cancer is very scary for a common person. But today we got to know that the positivity within is essential to get us out of that fear. Many organizations are working towards assisting the cancer patients and their families. Tata Memorial Center is playing a remarkable role in setting and evolving the processes for the quest of cancer. And Dr. Badwe is a very significant contributor for this task. We are extremely fortunate to have him here on our campus today to deliver 5th memorial lecture in the memory of our founder, Professor C.S. Deshpande. In spite of his busy schedule, he accepted our invitation and enlightened us on our role towards the quest of cancer. On behalf of the team Vidyalankar, I thank you, sir, for your valuable insight. Our thanks are due to our mentor, Dr. Gupchup sir, who has been guiding us right from the inception, planning, and execution of Professor C.S.D. Memorial Lecture. I especially thank sir for an opening address for today's gathering. I'm also thankful to our special invitees, which includes the friends and the family members of Professor C.S. Deshpande, the members of statutory bodies of all the 3 colleges on Vidyalankar campus, professors and officials of prestigious institutions in Mumbai. My thanks are also due to the students and the research scholars of medical, non-medical colleges and universities in Mumbai. Last but not the least, I am thankful to the entire Vidyalanka team headed by our chairperson, Rashmi Madam, Secretary Avinash Sir, and the Managing Trustee, Vishwas Sir and Namrata Madam. Entire teaching and non-teaching staff have put their best efforts towards organizing this program. I thank you all.
With that, I think we come to the close of the fifth session of the lecture series, which we have started in the name of Professor C.S. Deshpande. I now would like to request everyone to join us for refreshments outside the auditorium in the atrium. We won't call it dinner, so you can still skip it. And if you're already 60 or plus, then you don't need to change anything. So, thank you, everyone.